Hello, Julie.
Hello, Sarah. Here we are.
Here we are, January 14th, no longer the 13th.
We're
And
right
September
between the full moon and the Mars Sun opposition, and it's 2025.
betwixt the two. Here we
Hmm.
are doing our planetary pictures. And I was like, oh, it's going to be intense yesterday, but it wasn't actually. So maybe it's going to get me later, but it was quite a fine full moon. It wasn't very super
Did you have
eventful.
a personal reason to think it would get you, or was it just in general?
Oh, yeah, it was like right on my Venus, I guess.
So that's good. So you're feeling Venus. You're feeling
I'm feeling
satisfied, happy.
pretty good. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know if I go that far, but I was feeling okay.
Right. I don't think anyone feels really too secure
And
right now.
I had a lot of because it's in my seventh house, it's Mars retrograde. That's different, but because that's in my seventh house. But I guess it's my first house and seventh house that the full moon was in. I had a lot of really good client interactions yesterday.
No, that's good. That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. But what should we start talking? Should we go back and talk about yesterday and then go forward? Do you want
I
to say
think
anything?
yesterday and tomorrow, I mean, I think I think what I saw, what I have seen in this Mars, so the Mars Sun opposition, excuse me, is the midpoint of the Mars retrograde, right? And it's the only time that Mars can oppose the Sun is when it's retrograde. Um, and the Sun is the king or the ruler of the sky, of the heavens, of the solar system, and
Yeah.
Mars is the warrior. So Mars is opposite the sun. Mars is also first responders and people like that. So we definitely have a lot of crisis happening, although we always have a lot of crisis happening somewhere these days.
Oh
Um,
my, I just saw
but
that for what you just said, like in terms, sorry to go here so quickly, but Mars is fire, but I mean, sorry, the fire could be the sun in this case, and then the firefighters and the first responders could be actually Mars and the two going at each
Mars
other.
in a water sign, Mars, with their water in Cancer.
Wow, what an image that is. I didn't even see that coming. I just when you were talking, I could see it
You
was the
never
second.
see it coming, but boy, when it happens, you can really see how it
Yeah.
fits. So, if you think of the notion of sect, which is that the moon rules the night and the sun rules the day, Mars and Venus are meant to do the work of the moon, and Jupiter and Saturn are meant to do the work of the sun. So, when the Mars Sun opposition happens, we're meant to question very deeply why we're doing it the way we're doing it. The fact that the moon is full, is so bright in the sky, dims Mars's light,
Okay.
right? Mars literally has less. So you were talking about Mars at its perihelion, closest to the Earth, in the opposition. Mars is often always at its brightest when it's retrograde, when it opposes the sun, because the sun gets to shine on Mars. I mean, the Earth is in the middle, but so we see Mars very brightly when it's retrograde.
Right.
But the moon is dimming Mars's light. And
Right.
inasmuch as Mars is about aggression and war, I think it's interesting that the possibility of the a truce is very strong this week. And I see that as the fact that the moon is saying to Mars, you have to do this. You have
Mm.
to serve you have to serve life. God knows you've made a lot of death. So Mars is in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon is dimming Mars's light in her
Okay.
light
Right.
at
Like
this opposition. I just think that's a pretty interesting thing. It doesn't mean that the United States will have a woman president, alas, but it is meant to soften some of Mars's edge.
oh,
So,
oh, wow, that's so profound. I'm as soon as you say it, I can see it, even knowing the astrology, and then, but as soon as you say it, like I can really feel and see the effect of that, like where the moon comes in and just like a mother almost,
It's like
right?
exactly like a mother. It's exactly, she is the mother of the planets.
Yeah.
The sun is the father of the planets. Jupiter
Yeah.
tries to get in there, but sun is boss, yeah. So when
But
Mars
and
opposes
they
the
tell me
sun,
what to do. Well, that's funny because last week I really feel like I could feel I felt so Marsy last week. I felt like I was gonna get in a fight with everybody.
right.
I felt like I had opinions to share. And I was like, somebody just throw some fire on me, please. And then
Uh-huh.
this week, I really did feel the effect of, and it felt like water. It felt like compassion, and it felt like a
Mm.
softening, and it felt really nice, actually. Um, and so to hear that on a like to feel it on a microcosmic level, and to see your representation in the world with maybe Israel and Hamas, maybe, or wherever in the world there is a war happening,
Well,
that
on a closer level, there's this movement. So, we're all going to get $200 from the government, right? Which is so stupid. Um, and there's a movement, I think it's called $200.ca or something. Anyway, where people are pledging how they want to give their $200 to, food banks or whatever, if
oh
they
wow,
can,
yeah,
or maybe only part of it, or maybe none of it, whatever. But I love it. I think it's such a good idea because together that's a lot of money if a lot of Ontarians give that money to food banks, whatever. I mean, one guy said he was just gonna turn it into cash and give it to people on the street.
okay, that's
Yeah.
very well. Just as you say that, it makes me think, and we weren't even going to talk about this, but it makes me sorry to go jump all over the place, but it makes me think of the nodal shift going into Pisces,
Mm,
and that's
mm.
very much like a Piscean energy of charity.
Absolutely wonderful thing to mention. That's just on January 11th. The nodes slip back into Pisces and Virgo, and that's definitely about, you know, the overwhelming um the overwhelmingness of suffering on the planet and the desire to do something about it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. So
Hmm.
what does that mean in terms of the South Node in Virgo then? Like that if the North Node is what we're moving towards and what's evolving us,
Well,
what's happening?
what we're moving towards. I mean, we have the North Node, Saturn, and Neptune all in Pisces.
Okay.
And Saturn and Neptune are going to be there. Neptune goes into Aries in April or March 30th, and Saturn at the end of May. So a lot of people are really, just about everybody is really resonating with what's happening in LA and the sort of overwhelming closeness of it. And
Yeah.
that, there's only so much that people can do in the face of nature's whatever. And, all the misinformation that's coming out about that's actually quite dangerous. I don't know, between China and Russia and Elon Musk, there's a lot of lying going on about this. That's very dangerous for the people in California who are getting limited information. That's Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter is slowing down. It's going to make a station. Um, Uranus is also going to make a station, but the Jupiter and Gemini station is really the the culmination of misinformation and what that means. I mean, I have to say that sometimes I feel like I've stumbled into the brain of a crazy person and it's the world, right? And it's like, oh my God, this
No,
this isn't this isn't reasonable or rational. Like what's going on here? Um,
I
sometimes
felt,
it's my,
I felt
yeah.
like that in 2020 when we were all washing our mail.
Yeah.
That felt pretty crazy and OCD to me, but
Yeah, well, this isn't OCD. This is
a slow
misinformation.
burn
Yeah.
into the lack of groundedness and the wild ideas that are flying around. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like Jupiter's station is all about that, but I feel like the other way that we're resonating with, let's say, the fires in California is just that people have no homes and they're losing everything. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a website that just lists all the people who've lost their homes in low income neighborhoods in black areas. And it'll you can they all have GoFundMe's. So
Oh,
I found a granny who needs money and I sent her my money, my contribution I sent to her direct to her GoFundMe. Yeah.
we should put her link down there and,
Oh
any
yeah, I have her link. I have her link somewhere. Um,
that would be very North Node in Pisces. Yeah. And then looking at some of the videos of that, you also in the comments see people talk about North Carolina and they talk about
yeah.
Maui fires, right? So it's actually bringing that back in to remind people, hey, the people in North Carolina are still struggling as well. Like let's not
Mm,
forget about them too.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to find my link. I can't remember where it is, but anyway, I'll find it at some point.
Well, we can put it in the link below in the description so people can
Okay, I'm now that I'm posting the Patreons, I'm not sure I know how to do that, but I'll try. Um,
after. Yeah.
yeah, adopt a Los Angeles grandma.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so what does the South Node in Virgo mean? I guess the nodal axis in and of itself is Pisces and Virgo as a theme are service or can be service.
Yeah, so Virgo is practical service and Pisces is loving service.
Right.
And charity is a very messed up concept because we give I mean, in patriarchy, in dominator world, you give charity because you're better than the person you're giving the charity to. And so this is something that has to change. And Virgo, one of my favorite things to say is that Virgo is the enemy of patriarchy because Virgo understands that we're all entitled to the sovereignty of our own body and our own wholeness and our own health care and whatever that is. And patriarchy tries to convince us that rich people deserve more of that than poor people, right? And so Virgo is definitely the theme of violation across thousands of years of people who don't have money and power. So it's reminding us of that, but it's also the desire to be of practical service. And
Right.
each of us, I think the fact that it's the South Node suggests that each of us in our own little field of influence can do that, right? Each of us can find a way to be of service. And it's not necessarily like it made me feel better about myself to send some money to the granny in LA. It's a drop in the bucket, of what her challenge is going to be. But it made me, it was something I could do, and I did do it. Right.
Right.
And so it just helps me feel, it's not so much that I feel good about myself like I'm a saint. I'm not. Um, but it makes me feel like I did something I could do. Virgo is kind of like that. You don't have to do more than you can do. You can do what you can do. So Pisces along with Saturn and Neptune can be overwhelming, right?
Right.
And I suppose we could look at the days when the nodes actually come in contact with um
Yeah.
with
This that
Saturn and Neptune. Um, so the I'm just looking it up here in my handy little.
sorry, I just threw this at you. It's totally not what we said we were going to talk
No, no,
about.
it's something I've been thinking about though. I'm glad that I don't know, why not do things that we didn't plan?
Yeah.
Um, so the North Node will meet up with Neptune shortly. Um, it will do that in February. In February, the North Node will um, have an exact conjunction to Neptune. I'm not sure which day that is. It looks like it's yeah, in the early, it doesn't matter which day it is. Let's just say, I would say January, February, March, the North Node is definitely catching up to Neptune, which is overwhelming, chaotic energy. Like it's a wave of feeling, let's say, throughout the collective. And then it meets up with Saturn a little bit later, 27. That looks like, oh, well, you know what? Let's see, 25. That looks like it happens in April. So Saturn is if it bothers you, do something. Saturn is more practical.
And it could
And
actually
then,
provide containment for if there's a wave of
yes,
emotion,
it
wave
would
of,
be right.
watery emotion and chaos, the Saturn could actually end up coming
My
into
theory is that in March, we're going to be horrified at how people aren't getting what they need. And in April, some people will figure out how to direct resources where they belong. I'm sure that Gavin Newsom is going to want to secede from the US very soon. Um, yeah, and then the nodes will just keep retrograding back, and I don't think they'll catch up with Saturn and Neptune again. So this period in the beginning of 2025 is no surprise that things are happening, people feel out of control, and that's part of that transitional period, right, between 2023 and 2026 from all the outer planets, including Sedna, if you want to throw that in, changing sign. And
Okay.
but Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all going into different new signs, all going from yin signs to yang signs. So
Right.
much more of a sense of a fight coming. Whereas the period before they go in is kind of like, oh my God, it's transition. There's nothing I can do. I'm too far in. I can't get to the end. I can't go back, so we have to be
Yeah.
careful about that. But that's the first 3 months of January of 2025 look a lot like that. And then it changes after that. There's a lot of shifting energy. So I think as far as this planetary pictures goes, we want to invite people to think about what they can do,
Right.
to give the nodes some due and to ask the hard questions, because that's Mars opposite the sun, right? Ask the hard questions. Um, Look at your fears. Don't necessarily demand that you overcome them, but just know what they are. I've had some interesting personal stuff with that issue of looking at my personal fears and what I'm afraid to look at. And it does help a lot when you just can allow yourself to know kind of what you're trying not to know.
Yeah.
And then to understand that what's ever overwhelming us um, is overwhelming. It's overwhelming us for a reason, but then we'll go forward. Then we'll see how to go forward. So
Yeah.
in Canada, that's by then there'll be a liberal leader to have an election to see where we're going next in our own personal journey. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. That makes sense.
And it is interesting that Mark Carney, who's setting himself up to be, he's going to run, and he is somebody who might be able, because he's in business, not politics, God knows, but he's a Pisces, right?
Yeah.
So this challenge from where Pisces, Neptune, I think he's late in Pisces. Um, I thought he was a Virgo, so I'm a little embarrassed about that. But yeah, his sun is at 26 Pisces, and um,
Oh, that's interesting because he's making his sort of entrance. He's throwing his hat in the ring while the North Node is going over his sun.
yeah, that's right.
Uh, yeah.
The
So
North
that,
Node is going over his sun. Neptune has just finished conjuncting it. Saturn is coming up to conjunct it. Saturn's going to conjunct his Chiron, his Venus, and his sun,
all in Pisces.
all in Pisces.
Wow. Okay.
He was born with Saturn in Pisces. This is his Saturn return
Okay.
in his late 50s. But he also has a whack of Virgo. He has the Moon, Mars, Pluto, and Uranus in Virgo. So he's on to that Virgo Pisces thing. Yeah.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense that this, as the nodes shift, he's like, hello. And all of his planets are
Yeah.
activated.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like the universe is dialing him in.
right.
I mean, we don't
That,
know if he'll be the one, if he'll actually be the liberal
no, but
leader.
he's been lurking around and you've heard his name in different places. I haven't seen him, whatever. I didn't know even like I'd heard his name and he was in the shadows and all of a sudden, like yesterday, he's like, hello there. So,
Right.
there's
And Polyev is a Gemini, right? So he's riding on Jupiter's coattails, but our election will be before Jupiter leaves Gemini. So whoever's gonna take that on is gonna take somebody on who's got some good luck there. So
right,
yeah, I
right.
don't know if it means a win. And I don't, whatever. The politics is so hard to, and I don't know, you know, you can just keep looking at their charts. Trump has some difficult transits coming up, so that'll be interesting to see
Yeah, I'd
how
like
that.
to hear about that because we had said like he already had difficult transits when he was the assassination attempts. It was pretty clear he had the Mars on his ascendant and then the Mars squaring his ascendant conjunct Algol. Like it looked like if you were his astrologer, you would say, "Hey, maybe don't go public speak today."
You might have said that to him. Yeah,
But
and he's one of these people with Algol on the midheaven, right? So Uranus is on his midheaven. The Mars Sun opposition is on his Venus,
wow,
and the inauguration is, very soon.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so he has Saturn is going to square his sun and his moon, and that I think that's, March. And then he's got all this Uranus stuff happening. The squares, not so much right now, but more like April, May. And Uranus doesn't really let up in his chart for a while. So, uh, I mean, at the very least, he's got a really hard job, whether he thinks he does or not. What's really interesting right now is that in February, Mars is going to square his Jupiter the whole time, the whole month. So
um,
Mars in Cancer is making a station going direct on February 23rd at 17 degrees of Cancer, and it's squaring Trump's Jupiter in Libra, which is very interesting because that's difficult. That's a difficult transit.
Mars,
I don't think Trump is very introspective or anything. But
that could be an understatement, but Mars square Jupiter, Mars in Cancer square his Jupiter in Libra. And what house is that? Are those in his?
Mars is in his 11th house.
Okay, so
Jupiter
the
is on the cusp of his third, so it's a lot about how he uses information and misinformation to make his magic work.
yeah,
And Mars, someone might be, standing up or uh, holding up I almost think that the thing with Jupiter in Gemini is it really has been, and it's not just Trump, it's like China and Russia, and God knows the United States is probably doing it over there. It's just, I think as astrologers, you look at Jupiter and Gemini and you say, wow, too much information. Like, I don't even want to say
it's too
whose
much.
fault is it, right? But it also might be that there's a critical mass of too much misinformation.
Yeah,
And that would be an interesting thing to see happen.
yeah,
If people really begin to understand how manipulated they're being by misinformation, there might be a critical mass of that affects him. I mean, I know I'm dreaming in a way, but Mars square your Jupiter for an entire month isn't so much fun. For more than that, actually, more like 6 weeks.
hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And that seems to be happening all within the next 6 months, like like now and into the beginning
I
of.
think I think on March 30th. So in March, we'll talk about this, but Venus is retrograde, Mercury is retrograde in Aries, going back to Pisces. and Neptune is going into Aries. Like there's all this stuff about the Pisces Aries cusp.
Okay.
April has Mercury goes direct, Venus goes direct, and Neptune is in Aries. So I think April is a month when we'll start seeing how we're going to deal with all the chaos. But between now and then, it might just feel pretty chaotic.
Yeah, I would say it does. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It has that air of like what's gonna happen today?
Yeah, what next?
Yeah.
What next? Like, I don't even want to look at the news.
Yeah.
I don't
Exactly.
want to know. And then you think, well, everybody knows somebody,
Yes.
or knows somebody who knows somebody in LA. It's quite close.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, South
Absolutely.
Carolina or North Carolina was also, but it's like each one of these things chips away at the well-being of North America, let's say at least. Yeah. But I
It
think
it does fall into that category as well as too much information. Like when there's too much, there's just too much, and then
it's overload. Yeah.
you stop being able to process, right? There's just you need,
Right.
and then it does actually make you be present because you do have to turn the news off or you do have to shut the computer and the phone off and just walk down the street and just let all of that stuff up here process down, right? There just
Right.
has
So
to be
then how do you do that without dissociating? Right?
well, not dissociating, but just taking the time that you need to let that all sink in and
Yeah,
work its
that's what I'm saying. But what you're doing is you're doing it so that you can let it sift down, not so that you can pretend it isn't happening.
exactly. And I find, same as everybody else, if you go into nature or if you even just look outside at nature.
Yeah. No, smelling the air outside, even
Yeah,
feeling bitter cold is good. Yeah.
like it start because it puts the energy in your body or it gives you space in your mind so that you can start to let it do its own thing. Start to let because if we let our bodies digest food, then they'll digest. If we let our minds digest, then they'll digest. But
Yeah.
it's when we keep putting things into it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's Pisces Virgo. You're speaking for the Pisces Virgo
I had no idea
nodes.
I was so aligned with them today.
Well, you are. I mean, your Mars in Pisces. Why
Oh yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that for astrologers, it's a bit of an exercise to understand that nodes aren't planets. They're portals. And so they open a window on some kind of understanding. And the Pisces Virgo window is devotion, practical and loving service, those two sides of that. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I mean, is that enough? Have we covered enough for today, do you think?
Well, the astrological conversation never ends.
That much information? Do we need to process that, or should we talk about where we're headed with the Mars retrograde? Now
Well,
that,
the opposition is tomorrow on the 15th of January. So we're all looking to see if Mars can actually take care of people rather than kill them. That would be good.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
we have a Jupiter station coming up uh in I think it's the Jupiter station is February. So the Jupiter station is February 4th. And then Mars goes direct on February 23rd. And
Okay.
there's a new moon in there on January 29th.
Okay. Something.
And the new moon is in Aquarius. The new moon is asking us about our own relationship to information and communication and all that stuff. It trines Jupiter, so that's good. That's a kind of positive
That's
a time
Chinese New
for
Year.
it.
I guess
Yeah.
that's
So it's a time. Do you know anything about the year of the snake?
well, I asked my Chinese acupuncturist today if she could tell me anything about it, and all she she said, well, it has to do with health, but I don't know if she's biased because she's in the health field. But I said, well, I guess you'll be busy then. But if you think about it, snakes really are, the caudus, is it called? You know, the snakes that wrap around the staff, the healing
Oh,
staff.
yeah, yeah. The
So
caduceus.
yes, that's what it's called. Yeah, yeah,
And the snake, I think of my digestion as a snake.
absolutely. Esophagus.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Crystal.
yeah.
Yeah,
And the
definitely.
Kundalini snakes.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
transformation, you know, transformation.
Yeah, it's easier to deal with all this stuff when you understand that nothing dies easy and neither is patriarchy going to die easily, right? This is its last gasp. And I don't know how long it takes, but we're here to help it get to its next
Get it.
iteration.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here to end the age of Pisces and bring in the age of Aquarius. And it takes, I always thought it would take 100 years from the 1960s to the 2060s.
That sounds about right. How far
Mhm.
are we away from that now? We're just that should be kind of the what's that? That's 35 years? 35 years?
Oh, to the, right. And then we'll be there. And either humans will be extinct and machines will be running the show, or we'll have figured it out, which is more likely.
Yes, I agree. It's more likely.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's a good ending.
Yeah. And then we'll convene again, maybe around the full moon or the new moon, sorry, new moon in Aquarius.
Oh, yeah. Or the new moon or yeah, somewhere in there after the new moon. We'll be back. Okay,
Sounds
so I'm going to say goodbye.